That is Reckneck. That is something new. That is a just the actual audio tracks for part of the new song called Cat's Eyes. We're going to be featuring that on here. I'm just going to switch over my audio just to make sure that everything is it should be. And we got a great show lined up for you tonight. We're going to be talking about all things music, all things Spotify. We're going to be wrapping up 2023. This is our last show of the 2023 season. And we got a whole lot of great things lined up for you in 2024. Coming up on deck on the 3rd of January, Brian Vollmer from Helix is going to be with us. And then January the 10th, we have our friend Michael Brandvold join us again. Michael is a expert digital marketer, and we'll be talking to him about all things music, as well as all things independent music, and probably talking about this topic too. We'll be talking about some Spotify stuff tonight. Before we do, though, I'm going to introduce my co-host, Sean Mckenna, from the podcast Bar Stools and Band Talk, all the way from the East Coast in Halifax. How's it going, buddy?
The outpost of Halifax. Good. How's it going?
It's going great, man. Good to have you here tonight. And we got a big show lined up with lots of cool stuff, some facts about Spotify. There's been some controversy about Spotify. They've taken a lot of heat and a lot of criticism. And you put a post on your profile not long ago about Spotify, and it took a lot of heat.
Well, I guess I'll preface by saying it's an interesting topic because everybody seems to be a subject matter expert, right? And I don't profess to be one on that platform. I have never professed to be one. And it just seems like anything you bring up, everybody knows more than you, or they know more than everybody. Yet nobody seems to be getting results. And I mean, I guess there's results when they had, I think it was a week before or whatever, where everybody was posting what their streams were, and there was hundreds of thousands. And but what does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot of metrics involved in this thing called Spotify, and streaming as we know it, and we know the face of streaming has changed dramatically over the years. Um, I'm going to wind us back a little bit, back to the year 1999. Now, that was the year that pretty much the internet changed, and we went from dial-up over to a newer, faster platform.
Right.
And that was when they started a thing called file sharing.
That was right around the time too. You remember it was Y2K, where the whole world was going to explode and everything was
That's
going to
right.
go. And I remember sitting by the TV set waiting for the clock to go over, and it was like, nothing. Nothing happened, right?
I have to tell you, here's an interesting thing. I worked for the Ministry of Health in Ontario at that time, and we were on call that whole week
Right.
because everybody was convinced that the computers didn't know how to flip over to the year 2000, and we were going to have catastrophic failures in the health system. There was even worry that the electric grids were going to go down because at that point in time they were starting to be somewhat computerized in terms of how they were run and operated. So there's a great deal of worry about what was going to happen.
All this stuff cracks me up because last week Moneris had an issue with their debit and credit cards here for the second time in about 4 months in Halifax.
I saw that.
Right.
There was a complete shutdown there of Moneris.
There was. And so, all banks and everything are trying to get you to move over to total paperless. There's certain groups that will not accept cash. It's like, I'm sorry, till you figure that out. If I have cash on, I'm going to go cash before I go card. Even, we're getting a little off topic, but even if now they have this envelopeless uh, debit process or a deposit process, and 4 times I've had cash get hung up in the bank where I've had to go in the next day because it didn't show my account. It got stuck in the machine. They get a long way to go before you're going to convince people to totally drop everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's the whole thing of Spotify. Before Spotify even began, we had services that started taking over the internet in terms of file sharing. As a young student that started a thing called Napster.
Right. Everybody will remember that.
And that started out innocently enough as a file sharing program that was designed for people to share and talk about music. And of course, people were starting to take, music and digitize it, move it down from the sort of platforms that it was on, which was in those days cassette tapes and CDs. And they were looking at, okay, now let's take it into the digital world and let's figure out a way to share these files. And and what started as a small project by a student to share files turned out to have millions of users on it.
Right. And everybody remember the Metallica against Napster. Uh, well, somebody just said, remember the fight between Napster and Lars Ulrich. And, it always pains me to say Lars Ulrich was right, but it appears back then that he was onto something.
Well,
Um,
and Lars got a bad rap over that whole thing because what he was really concerned about was that artist music was being given away for nothing.
right.
And here's a band who was, working hard to develop a work product that could catapult them into a different level from the grunge rock, the grunge metal rock that they came from. And they had a single that was coming out on a very famous movie, a Mission Impossible movie.
Right.
And that was what was that? Around the year 2000, right?
Yeah, ish. Yeah, for sure.
And if you look at it, I mean, we went from dial up into this world of digital. I mean, you look at the internet, and really, in terms of going from dial up to the platforms that we're on today, we're only 24, not even a quarter of a century old.
Yeah. And I think that obviously technology, I mean, the newest thing that everybody's freaking about now, out about now is AI, right? But I think technology it's always moving. It's always sort of shape shifting. I think where people get lost in the shuffle, if you will, is the ones that kind of sit around and watch the changes happen as opposed to try to get in the middle of it when it happens and take their piece of it. And that's when people, I guess, get into trouble and get left behind.
Well, and the thing is that this all came out of a streaming service, which really didn't start out as a streaming service, but came as a file sharing service um, by it was by a student that developed it. And I mean, we go back there. His name was Sean Fanning, and he and his friends throughout the country wanted to trade music in MP3 format, and decided that sharing across the internet would be a really cool thing to do. By February 2001, Napster had roughly 80 million monthly users compared to Yahoo's 54 monthly
Right.
users. So here was something that was growing in leaps and bounds, but it wasn't. And all that came from that whole era of when people started taping their favorite television shows. Remember that you could tape your TV shows on VCR, and that went before various copyright people, and it turned out that it was okay to copy your favorite favorite show. Like people made copies of MASH and watched those back issues of MASH for years to come after the show stopped airing. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. All that stuff. I mean, really, at the end of the day, right? Somebody does it. Somebody gets called on it. It gets put before a court. Court decides what's right and what's wrong. And back then, I think everything was just so new. Um, Nobody really had an idea of how it should go, or and we're going to get into this here shortly, but now you see it, and frankly, it's pretty. I don't want to say impossible. It's very difficult for musicians to make money off these platforms now.
Yeah, and it really caught the music industry by surprise. I mean, the record labels didn't even know how to deal with this new world of digital, and in fact, some of them didn't even know, like, okay, where do we find the right tech guys to hire to be able to harness the power of the internet and be able to use that in a way that is. I mean, they were obviously looking for a way that was going to profit the record companies.
Right.
The artists were looking at it saying, "Look, we got a lot of work product here. We don't want to lose." Um, our investment because we want to still make. I mean, think about back in the day when they were selling physical copies of records and CDs. That was a good share of their income.
Yeah, it was, and I in doing not only research for this, but just over the last year and a half, I don't think the business was ever set up for musicians to make money. If they made money, great, but um, I think it was made up for shareholders of record companies to make money and record execs to make money, and dare I say maybe producers, but maybe not. But some of those producers wound up being executives of record companies too. But there's a long history of this business really not being set up for musicians to earn a proper living. So obviously some have. Uh,
Yeah, and you look back in the day when all this started. It started out of that whole idea of, okay, this thing's going to get away on us. Our music is going to be given away for free. Um, and something that was unreleased got pirated and got out there on the internet because somehow somebody got a hold of the demo for the song
right.
um, by Metallica, and of course, Lars decided he was going to take him to task, and it really hurt their reputation, unfortunately, because they took a big hit over this. Basically saying, "Oh, these guys already got lots of money, like they don't need any more." Um, but people that said that didn't really realize where these guys came from.
So here's the thing: anytime you do something like that, especially if you're somebody that's affluent or has some skin in the game, I guess, if you will. There's always and I'm the first to say I'm not a huge Metallica fan. I'm the first to say I'm not a huge Lars fan. I respect Metallica, I respect Lars, but for them to do what they did was it was a huge thing, and I'm glad they did it because you know what? It didn't really appear like anybody was going to at that point. And anytime you do something like that, you go against the grain. You got to be prepared to, take it on the chin, if you will. They weren't, and now look at them. Here we are, 2023. They probably had one of the biggest years they've ever had, and into 2024. So, good on them for doing it.
They're playing some of the biggest arenas in the world, and they're packing them out.
Yep.
And right now, I believe that they're probably at the top of their game right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because again, I was never a huge fan. But you can't deny their place in history, right? I mean, you get people that argue, no, it's Anthrax, no, it's Megadeth. Metallica was one of the first ones that, um, kind of took that. And Exodus was doing it in San Francisco and different bands like that. But Metallica was one of the first ones that took it and kind of rode through the whole hair metal thing, then the grunge thing, and they kept doing their thing as music around them was changing. They tried to change a little bit. I mean, some of the load and reload stuff is a little different, and St. Anger's a little different, but you can't deny, whether you like them or not, their place in history and what they've done.
Well, and at the end of the day, I mean, when all this went down, back in the early 2000s and Napster was big, you had other companies like LimeWire that jumped on board and other file sharing services that were, literally pirating these MP3s and putting them out on the internet, and nobody knew how to lock it down. It was like, how do we lock this down in a way that people's copyright is protected? Because when you record a song, you own the copyright to that recorded work,
No, for
and
sure.
you don't have to register it with the Library of Congress. You don't have to put it on SOCAN. You don't have to do anything. If you own the masters to your songs, you are the rightful copyright owner of that recorded work. And here's the thing, is that all they were saying was you're violating copyright laws. If you want to use copyrighted material, pay us for it.
Yeah, and I think you probably had a bunch of kids at the time that were just doing something fun and get you, and they really didn't have any means to pay. They thought they were doing an end around, and then, as you say, 80 million users, and you know, somebody
Well, and
probably.
there's always that sort of extremist entitled group that thinks that everything should be free.
Ha! What?
Somebody's got to
What?
pay for it. I mean, somebody's got to pay for it eventually, right? I mean, there's an old saying in my school. I mean, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and we had an old saying: ass, grass, or gas, nobody rides for free.
Yeah, and now, I'm not going to say this is a new phenomenon, but certainly I get to see it from both sides in what I do, and it seems like there's an awful lot of people that want other people to spend money on stuff that they're doing, but they don't want to spend money themselves, and that's kind of a little bit of a quagmire, right?
Yeah, and you know, I've talked about the sour grapes sort of thing, where people grab a hold of your shirt tails and they ride your shirt tails, but they certainly aren't willing to return the favor.
Well, that I don't know. I don't know if the tail half of
Don't get me started.
2023. No. I don't know if the tail half of 2023 was a lot of people were experiencing that, but it just seemed to me that I dealt with an awful lot of people that were experiencing that, and I think now that I looked at 2024, I just my whole thing is, hey, you got to accept it happens. You also got to accept that in order for someone to be successful, they have to help other people be successful, and sometimes you're just not going to get credit for it. That's just the way it's going to go. And so I think that a lot of people were frustrated with it. I'm like I said before, I'm no life coach, but it seems to me I probably had in the last month, I've had 10 people that have approached me and said, I've supported people and now they're not supporting me. Human nature, I guess. I don't know what else you can call it.
Yeah, I mean, so in this search, I mean, thinking about this whole search thing about how do we make this legal and still be able to figure out a way to pay people? And so along come services like Spotify in 2006. You've got Apple Music, Steve Jobs's project with Apple Music, and actually there was a point in time where Apple had the share of the market. They had the largest share of the download and streaming service market before Spotify really came online.
Well, so this just in, something came up on my feed. Metallica just spent millions funding a new Spotify alternative. Will it work?
Hmm.
And I think everybody, I don't want to say it's declared war on Spotify, but everybody's trying to figure out a way to do it where people get paid.
They should
And
join our platform.
well,
It's
there you
called
go.
TUNZ.com. There you go. Independent music owned by independent artists, run by independent artists for independent artists.
Well, and that's a I've talked this indie tunes thing up quite a bit, and I don't know. It's a little bizarre to me that I think people think that somebody's looking to get their long arm in the short pocket, or there's something going on. I just don't understand. But it's certainly by far what you've been trying to accomplish with this is certainly what people have been trying to do or trying to see. So they need to get on board.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why I want to incorporate the company and take it nonprofit and have it run as a board of directors by artists for artists. This was never about me getting rich or making money. This was about how do I help independent artists who've got great product to get it out in front of as many people as possible. Let the public decide. I mean, here we live in a great age now. I mean, you think back to post 1999, right? And we're people were still selling records in the 30 millions.
Yep.
right?
Yep.
They were selling records, and that some artists were selling 30 million records in a year. That's a lot of vinyl.
It is. And now, dare I say, you're going to be hard pressed to see that ever again, just because of the access people have to music and how to get it and
Well,
how to get it
but
easily.
but the great thing about it back then, what I mean, the disadvantage back then was that you had to hear by word of mouth on the radio, on the news, whatever. Now, music can hit you in the face everywhere. It's so prevalent on every social media platform, right? I mean, there are even Reddit groups dedicated to independent music, talking about independent music, and these Reddit. Um, my son's a real Reddit fan, and he reads a lot of stuff on Reddit. And there's all these subreddits.
Right. And I'm to the point now. I'm having a real hard time, and I'm going to sound like the cranky old man, and so be it. But I have a real hard time. There's so many people that are posting, guitar instructional things and bass instructional things and drum instructional things, and which is great, right? There's nothing wrong with that.
Yep.
I don't begrudge
Yep.
anybody trying to make a living or doing whatever. Um, but now it just seems like to me, and this is just my simple way of doing things. They're all watching each other, and they're all very, very similar in what they do. And it's like, okay, well, maybe this guitar player's left-handed, or maybe this drummer spins with his left hand and not his right hand. And it's just too much. I can't do it. I can't, and again, I would rather see an independent artist doing their thing than some guy that's clearly trying to get, millions of followers on a play channel.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Kyle Alt says hi, by the way. Hey, Kenny and Sean, keep up the good work.
Hi, Kyle.
Thanks,
Thank
buddy.
you.
Much appreciated, Kyle. I always love to get some props when we're on here. You know, it helps feed us.
Well, and Peter James, my good friend Peter James, who is in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, brought up the first thing about Napster and Lars Ulrich. And Peter, I've spun Peter's tale before, but Peter's one of the most amazing bass playing fellows that's in these parts. And he was looking for a New Year's Eve gig. So hey, kids, if you need a bass player, look him up.
There you go. You know, so you fast forward, and then you got companies like Spotify who come out, and you got Apple Music, who, like I said, for a long time we carried the lion's share of subscribers, and then along comes Spotify with this idea of, okay, so celestial radio in some ways has run its course. There's got to be another way to chart music,
Right.
right? And music shouldn't just be decided by radio. It should be decided by radio and whatever other platform people can find your music on. So now when you see, companies like Billboard Music, for example, recognizing artists, it's not just airplay, but they're looking at sales. They're looking at analytics and demographic engagement to see who they think is going to be the up and comers, because it's not all done by radio anymore.
Well, and radio is one of those things, and I'll tippy toe around this a little bit because I have a lot of friends that work in it. But when you used to advertise on radio, if you ran an ad for a week, really, it was one of those things where, yeah, I took radio and it didn't work. Well, how long did you do it for? A week? Oh, okay. Well, a week is not gonna work. Anybody that I know that's worked in the business tells me it's got to be campaigns. You got to do radio campaigns, right? But they don't have a true way to go out into the netherworld and say 8,000 people were listening to this or watching this. They can say, based upon surveys, we think that X amount of people are watching it in this age demographic, but there's no real numbers. So now you're starting to see like Sirius. They don't even care about advertising unless it's their own. They're not out there selling ads. There's some famous radio and TV ads here that were in Atlanta, Canada, that you don't even hear anymore because it's not a platform that works.
A buddy of mine online tonight, Henning Searns, he is with a band called Cardang. They have a new album out. He says, "Cheers from Cardang, Kenny and Sean. Happy New Year. We got a new album out." So you know,
Well, and hey, do me a favor, my friend. As soon as I can, I will click on your link and I will subscribe to your channel. And please go subscribe to the AnyTunes channel and Barstools and Band Talk. Because here's another topic. It is silly to me why, and I heard this from somebody today. Oh, I'd subscribe, but it takes too long. I'm the king of not wanting to take things to take too long, and I can go into my email and subscribe to a channel. It takes 20 seconds. You don't want
right,
to if you're not doing it, and that's fine. Just tell me you don't want to. Don't make it an excuse.
right.
So,
It here's the thing. Henning is a great guy, and I've had a couple of conversations with the boys over at Cardang about expanding their reach and working with us. Um, Maybe not necessarily exclusively, but helping working with us to help expand their reach. These guys are great. Uh, they're European band. Um, and I don't think they travel outside the continent, but they got some great tunes, man. They've got some really great tunes, and they're well known over there, and I know they play shows and stuff like that. So Henning, you know what, we'll send people your way, you send people our way, and get them to join our YouTube channels, Barstools and Band Talk, Indie Tunes Records. We've got a lot of great content that we put out. Sean interviews everybody and anybody that's in the music industry on his podcast, and we've had some great artists here on the show, um, and people that are knowledgeable within the music industry. And we plan to up our game in 2024, don't we, Sean?
absolutely. And you know what? Here's the thing: we keep talking about networking and the importance of networking.
That's right.
I I am now working with fellow podcasters, and we are flipping contacts to each other for guests. So I'll give you an example. Michael Brandvold, God love him, he's going to be on the show. He helped me get Tom Werman, world famous producer of Cheap Trick, Motley Crue, Poison, Twisted Sister, Ted Nugent, Molly Hatchet, etc. He helped me get Tom Werman on. It was a fantastic interview. I've got a gentleman that I work with. He's got a podcast called Laughing Monkey, and he and I flip things back and forth. So the whole thing is if you think that you're holding on to your contacts, like you're going to hatch them like an egg, and it's just all going to work for you, I'm telling you, share the wealth because it really does come through. And this is what we're talking about here, even with the Spotify.
Yeah, I mean, there's like I said, there's the good, bad, and indifferent about Spotify. Is Spotify a necessary evil? It is in our world. um, Unfortunately, until something else really takes hold. I mean, we'd love Indie Tunes Records, IndieTunes.com to take hold, because right now we're offering memberships for the website as a revenue drive to be able to move forward, to expand the platform and build it so it would be a direct publishing platform open to artists. They would have to come through our gateway. There's some criteria involved because we want to make sure that there's quality music on the website. So we're not going to allow certain things in terms of the way music is created to be on the website. We want to make sure that people that are paying their dues, taking their time to well produce music, to write it, to well perform it. These are guys who go in the studio and they already have their shit together. They're not there for a rehearsal. They're there to put tracks down, right?
And there's some great stuff on there. It never ceases to amaze me the level of talent in the independent world. And I had a post about this today that um, it was really funny. You can always tell the people that aren't supporting something because they're the most vehemently opposed to what I post and come at you at five different angles trying to win you over. But my post was simply this: independent artists work very hard and oftentimes don't get paid when they're playing. And it's crazy to me how somebody will travel hundreds and thousands of kilometers to go see somebody in another city, then come back and ask for a free ticket on a guest list or something for a local show. And somebody said to me, "Well, people like what they like." I'll be honest with you. I'll say something here that I bet you I get lit up. I agree with that to a point, but I also think people like to be seen and they like people to go, "You're so lucky you went to that concert." Nice, right? That's part of what they're looking for too. That's just social media. I can't fault anybody for that. But all I'm saying, or my point was, is support local. It's support independent. These are the folks. Some of them are going to be your next Nickelbacks, or some of them are going to be your next, I don't know, Taylor Swift,
We
dare I say.
we've got some great music up on our website. We still globally publish for everybody, but their catalogs can be found on our website at anytunes.com or anytunesrecords.com. We currently have about 400 tracks up on the website. Doesn't seem like a heck of a lot, but we're continuing to add music all the time, and of course, we're slowly adding Helix's catalog of music, Sarah Smith's catalog of music. So there's, by the time those get added, we probably got another 100 titles at least added there, and so we're looking to add more. We're looking at building a side of the platform that will allow artists to upload their music directly, much the same way they would if they were using a service like DistroKid or TuneCore or CD Baby. They would be able to publish directly to our website, and our goal is to turn the website into a hub for independent music. So not just independent music, but turn it into a real independent music community. So I mean, I meant to make the pitch before Christmas, but I mean, it's never too late to get a birthday gift for somebody that's got a birthday coming up, and give them the gift of music. Give them a membership, a 1-year membership to our website. Cost you $50, and it's $50 Canadian. So if you're American, it's going to cost you a lot less money, and you can join our website and become a member of the website, or you can give someone the gift of music, and they'll maybe discover some music they've never heard before, and they'll go, wow, this is a whole different world for me.
How does it work when somebody's you're buying a car and the dealership will post, payment $72 biweekly, and I'm not smart enough to go, wow, that's 1,400 and some odd bucks, or what, or
13
100,
cents a day.
13 cents a day. Thank you.
13 cents. It costs you 13 cents a day to join our website. I mean, think about that over the course of a week. That's not even a cup of coffee.
No, and I mean, it's one of those things where do it like this instead of going and grabbing a coffee. Because I did this one time, just I did it for 30 days just to see what's up. I put the $2 that I would normally spend in the morning aside in a jar, and at the end of 30 days, you guessed it, I had about 60, $70. Pretty amazing. What's Brendan Walker? Hey, babe, is that a 1-year membership or lifetime? It's 1 year.
It's a 1-year
Uh,
membership. It's a 1-year membership to our website, and like I say, what you're doing is not only helping the artist get remunerated, they're going to be making all of the money that comes off there. They're going to earn 75 cents on every dollar that's generated off that website. So we're looking at creating base salaries for artists that are part of our streaming service. So we're actually developing a streaming and download service off our website that has our labels operated on for some time. And I found out that I was paying for a whole lot of bells and whistles that I wasn't using.
well, and hey, you and I talked about the fact that Rim Shots with Sean and Barstools and Band Talk is going to the audio portion is going to be run through Indie Tunes in 2024, because that's an option. I was doing it a little bit last year, but I'm like, Ken knows the analytics. Why am I gonna and get the tip here? Ken went across the analytics minefield. I have not. Therefore, do I want to blow myself to pieces, or do I want to figure out how Ken? Well, I'll get Ken to help me, and I don't have a problem sharing the wealth, if you will, because I tried it myself last year, and it was a lot of work and not a lot of success. So we're going to give this a try.
I had to refresh the chat, so I lost some of the chat. So I'm sorry if I can't respond to anything. So if you have a question for us, you want to throw something in there for consideration, you put your 2 cents into the chat below there. For some reason, it croaked and it stopped working. So hopefully
Uh,
the chat is working.
if I could give a little shout out, because Brendan Walker was asking about the yearly versus lifetime. And so he's a young man who has gone out so he does a lot of karaoke and DJ stuff at corporate events. And he's got a couple of places here locally that he does I think it's Tuesdays and Wednesdays. He can correct me on that. But he's a young man that has gone out and networked and saw what worked and saw what didn't, and is now taking the plunge and he's doing it on his own. And those are the stories that you love to hear because he's getting support and people are supporting him, and I think it's amazing that he's doing that.
Yeah, I mean, everything becomes a bit of an entrepreneurial sort of exploration. I mean, when I started Indie Tunes Records back in 2016, it was really designed to find a way to appropriately publish artist music on all download and streaming platforms. And at that point in time, the website was barely developed. And of course I had to develop the website myself, so I had to find a web host that had intuitive tools because I can't write HTML.
Right?
Unlike our friend Michael Brandvold,
Yeah. Well, there's not
you
much
know,
Michael doesn't do well.
who's a brilliant digital marketer, and so not being able to write HTML, I had to look for something that had some meat to it that I could utilize the tools to build the website. And I know I'm just scratching the surface. Like I look every day at all the widgets and all the other things that I can add to my website that would make it more powerful. And yet I don't quite understand that tech part of it because I'm trying to do all things. Chief cook, bottle washer, jack of all trades, master of none, and I'm still learning. Like there is so much that I have learned in the last 7 years. Uh, Indie Tunes will be 7 years old on March the 1st of 2024. Um, and it started really modestly. I had 5 artists that said, "Can you help us distribute our music and get it out in front of as many people as we can?" And at that point in time, I was really just starting to explore, you know, the opportunities that are offered by social media and offered by other platforms that could be utilized to propel artists' music out there, right? To get more people aware of their music and get their music onto playlists on Spotify and iTunes and all of the major download and streaming services so that they could actually generate streams. I mean, you think about this whole business of streaming and they go, yeah, I only get a 16th of a cent per stream. But then you have to understand there's an economy behind all of that and how, you know, companies like Spotify run. Spotify, um, you know, has operated in the red for I don't know how many years. They lose money every year, and only half of their subscribers pay. Did you know that?
Well, I did, and I mean that's the unfortunate world that we live in, right? It's uh, the value that people put on things is very. I don't want to say it's strange because I guess by the same token, if somebody's not willing to pay for something that you do, I guess they don't perceive it to have value. But it doesn't surprise me at all, especially when they're more or less working on the idea. Hey, you don't have to buy it. You can don't have to get the premium if you can put up with commercials and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're not really doing anything majorly, in my opinion, to incent people to actually spend the money for it.
So here's some interesting facts off Spotify's website. In 2021, they paid $7+ billion in royalties to right holders.
Hmm.
$7 billion, up $5 billion in 2020. So 2021 was a really good year, right in the pandemic, and digital music explodes. Why? Everybody's home, everybody's locked up, everybody's bored. People are looking for new stuff, and they're going on streaming services, going, "What am I going to listen to today?"
So question.
Yeah,
That's a huge number.
yeah.
Now you're hearing they're not paying and nobody's making any money. Is it a case that wow, we just paid out all that, we need to find a way to not pay artists? Is that
Well, okay. So the company was founded. Spotify was founded in 2006, right? Since 2006, they have paid $30 billion to rights holders.
Hmm.
Now, you got to remember, rights holders are not just holders of the recorded works. We're also talking about publishing rights for the written works.
Right.
And they're not always one and the same. The right holder for the written work is not always the right holder for the masters. And a lot of times those publishing rights are shared. So now there's layers of people that got to get paid, right? And
Mm-hmm.
not all right hold. For example, let's say you and I co-wrote a song together,
Yep.
and we're the rights holders on it. But the agreement was, when we wrote this particular song, we were going to do a 25-75 split, because I came up with the majority of the words, and you and I came up with the melody together. Right? And you said to me, you know what? I think it's fair that you take 75% of this because you had 75% of the work in it. And I said, no, we're in this together. We're going to split the royalties 50-50 on this. So when you and I publish it, we publish it as a 50-50 sharehold. But publishers have different publishing agreements with artists. And sometimes they're one and the same, sometimes they're not. Sometimes the catalog of music is not even owned by the artist.
It's a real, dare I say, science to how all this works, right?
Well, it's a quagmire to figure out. I mean, think of the size of the accounting department that Spotify must have in order to figure out how they're going to pay people.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too, and I find this every time you do something, somebody that you either might have accidentally overlooked or somebody that's feeling slighted comes out of nowhere and says, "Hey," and so and it becomes, I actually, our guitar player, I talked to him, Mark Horton. He has somebody at his company that handles this, and it's really not a 1 + 2 = 3 kind of scenario. There's so many ins and outs, and at the end of the day, yes, it comes down to law, but it also comes down to the opinion of if it ever gets to that point. It's really, really, really an art form, so to speak.
Yeah, here's an interesting thing. In 2021, recorded streaming revenue alone across all services was higher than the entire industry's revenue from all forms of recorded music for each year from 2009 to 2016.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, here's an interesting thing. There were artists in 2021 that made the $1 million mark.
So but here's the interesting thing. Those are the ones you don't hear too much about, right? You hear, you
No,
know, you
you
hear the
hear
Peter
about
Framp, well, the Peter Framptons of the world saying that he got millions and millions of streams and made 31 grand or whatever the heck it was. Um, so, and to be honest with you, I don't really know how much Spotify really cares because there was a thing released, I think it was last week or the week before, about how much money that the CEO has been making over the last bit. And when he was questioned by artists, his whole thing was load more stuff on our platform if you want to make money.
the thing is, Daniel Ek came up with an idea in 2006. He got a bunch of shareholders behind him, and they believed in the dream that there could be a streaming service that could rival all streaming services that had a two-tier system, right? They didn't want to keep music away from people that couldn't afford it. So they said, okay, we're going to have part of the platform where we're going to give the music away for free.
Uh-huh.
And there's another part of the platform that's a premium platform. And you get a few more bells and whistles if you have a premium platform than if you have a basic platform with Spotify. I mean, one of those bells and whistles is that it's all commercial-free music.
Yeah, and I mean, again, if you want to endure 18 commercials in between, this next half hour of tunes is up. You can do that too. I'd like to go to the message board here just for a second. So Brandon said
Sure.
Wednesdays and Thursdays. I did remember that. Sorry, Brandon. My friend Heather in Pictou County. I tell you, man, Peter James, Heather. Heather says, "Hi, Sean and Kenny. My 17-year-old son is a budding musician, plays numerous instruments proficiently, writes his own music and lyrics, produces and mixes in his studio in our basement, performs live whenever possible, and also teaches. He is released on Spotify. Can you talk a bit to the steps involved and the criteria involved in joining Indie Tunes?" And I can vouch for this young man because I've seen him a little bit. So I'll leave that up to you,
Well,
Ken.
that's a loaded question. I mean, the easiest way for you to join with us is to agree to our terms of service. We have one terms of service that we offer all artists, so nobody gets a different deal than anybody else. Everybody gets the same deal. And the deal is that you become part of something much bigger than what you are as a single entity. And what we're looking at is helping people to understand community again, what community means in the world of music. How can we help each other? How can we prop up one another? How can what we do help you? And how can what you do help us? You know, this is not an every man for himself approach. This is about creating community and finding a way that we can support one another and find people that appreciate the art form for what it is and support our effort towards a download and streaming service strictly for independent music. You can join our website for $50 a month, or sorry, $50 a year, which works out to 13 cents a day. That's one way you can support what we're doing. And it helps us to grow our platform, to make it bigger, to look at bringing on people that have some talent to help us expand our platform. And to be able to bring on young artists like Heather's son. So the short answer to that is it's really easy for him to join. We can arrange. I can give you a contact information. In fact, I'm going to see if it'll let me reply. No, it doesn't let me reply tonight for some reason. But you can. I'm going to type it in here. Indie Tunes. I can't talk and type at the same time. It's indietunes@gmail.com. And in the subject heading, put interested in joining Indie Tunes or interested in being an artist member. So we're looking at artist members, but we're also looking at members who would join the website to support what we're doing and help us bring more independent music to the world and quality independent music. So we've got some, pretty basic criteria, don't we, Sean?
Yeah, I mean it's improved a little bit from you if you can fog up a mirror you're in. So that's a very good thing. Um, but in
Oh
all
man, that's funny.
seriousness, you're talking about a label that has the likes of Helix. Yeah, the Helix
uh,
and Sarah Smith and Michelle Ryder and Warren Sin, and I mean you can name a lot more than I can, but it's all people that both want to support themselves but support other artists, which is really unique.
yeah, and we're looking at all kinds of means and ways. I have artists now that have joined the label who are like, you know what? I'm willing to give you a budget. Yeah, I got this one too.
Oh yes, well you know what?
I
There's not.
know him. Oh my God, Santa's coming. I know him.
Well, mine's Bob Ross, and we know there's no mistakes, or what is it? There's just happy miracles, or I can't remember his
Happy
tagline.
miracles. My
Yeah,
my daughter's going. My daughter's going for New Year's down to Nashville to spend New Year's with some friends. We're actually driving her part way. We're driving her down into Ohio, where her friends are going to pick her up. We're meeting at Bowling Green State University, as a matter of fact.
nice.
um, and she's going to be going down there. So I said, "Hey, get me one of those tins of Bob Ross. They have them at the Bob Evans stores down there, right?"
How many do you want? I mean, there's a wonderful little candy store at Eastern Passage.
Send me one. Send me one.
Oh,
Like
no
that
problem.
45 you're supposed to send me.
This one? Well, I will tell you, I get another one. I get
no,
another one
no,
that was given to me.
okay, stick the mints and the record in the mail for me, will you?
Okay, so I get another one. Here you go. Forward, backwards. I get the 45 of Rock You from somebody the other day. So
Are you going to keep that? Or are you going to give that up as well?
that all depends. If I get to play on a song with Brent, maybe if you can convince Brent to do that, maybe you can have it.
I could get. I bet you Brent could use you on drums.
Oh,
I bet
listen,
you.
I will. It will happen. Trust me, it will happen. And and there's another
Donnie
upside.
Calder's online too. Creatures of Condition is also on our label, and they're working on new material. It's coming out
As is
soon.
my wicked twin Brent Dorner,
Yeah.
who is also part of the label, and he's a very creative, and he
Nobody approved.
right. He just, he doesn't approve of anybody. You get past. But the beautiful thing about Brent, I mean, like I keep saying it, there's a guy that I grew up listening to, and a guy I grew up going, man, it'd be really cool if I could someday be in a band like Helix. And just to be able to, last week he sends me his new video and asked me to give him feedback on it. Stuff like that's really cool, and that's what the independent scene is really all about.
I got to tell you, Brent is really, really, really gotten a hold of the whole independent artist thing, and he's grabbed it by the throat. I mean, he's just taken it for a good ride. He's on his 6th studio album now called Nobody Approved. The first single off that was called I Giant. It's out right now. It's on Spotify. It's on all streaming services, up on our website. I think it's got something like about 1,200 streams so far on Spotify, which is great because it gets, once you get that 1,000 mark,
Yep.
it's kind of like all of a sudden, once you hit 1,000 streams, your music gets bumped up in the algorithms.
Yeah.
And it gets bumped up in the suggestions that are available. I mean, we're right now looking at ways to exploit Spotify. We don't want to, like, I don't think we're ever going to shut Spotify down. What we're saying is there's room in the market for another player that offers independent artists something that's never going to be buried under algorithms, right?
Algorithms or major label artists.
Yeah, no one's music on our website gets any more. I mean, it's all listed alphabetically. I mean, that's the only way your music's ahead of anybody else is if your name comes first in the alphabet. You got to figure out a way to catalog it. So it's, artists are listed alphabetically. But I got to go back to Brent really, really quick here. His 6th studio album, this is called Nobody Approved. The song is brilliant. He's got a new single that's going to be coming out. It's called I'd Hide a Body for You. And Sean, have you seen the video?
I have the video. The video is cool. The song is without giving away too much. There's always the young guys are always like, oh, the old guys. I'm gonna tell you right now, this song that he wrote sounds just as new and as fresh as anything that's out there. I heard it in the first probably 35 seconds. I was like, holy crap, this guy's got a winner here, man. What a riff.
Well, here's an interesting thing. He wrote the song "It's Too Late" by Helix in 1981. It was a single off their White Lace and Black Leather album. It sold a ton of copies back then in a 45 format.
For anybody that's going 45, yeah, exactly.
I've got it right here.
Right.
This was produced in 1981, and it's heading upwards towards 10,000 streams after its first week of re-release, digitally remastered by moi. And I must say it's a much better recording than original, because Brent was never happy with the way the drums are recorded.
Yeah, he was telling me, yeah.
So I'll tell you a real quick story about that. The producer on that album made his brother tape his wallet to his snare.
There's so many stories. I mean, I remember reading a thing with Tommy Aldridge about
to get rid of the snare ring, right?
Well, not only that, just to choke the life right out of it because I
But
mean,
it made it sound like cardboard. It was so bad.
well, but here's the thing. Back in the day, back in those days, they didn't want a bright poppy snare. They wanted a big, thick. They were trying to emulate what Alex Van Halen and maybe John Bonham were doing. What they didn't understand was oftentimes there was no direct mic on that snare drum. That was a room noise that was picking up a lot of it.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know, so I've come to
Or it
find
was
out.
picked up by good overheads, right?
Sure, and I've come to find out that getting a good snare sound involves tuning, not muffling. And yeah.
Yeah, here's an interesting thing Bruce has to say. Bruce Hughes, do you know Bruce?
I know Bruce well. I'm going to see Bruce on this weekend. Bruce is a really neat guy. I can't say when, but he's got a book coming out. He is a stroke survivor that plays in the band called The Unheard out of Fredericton. They are all original band, so when you go see them play, they're only going to be playing their own tunes. Unlike myself,
Wow.
where I'll play whatever, because I can be bought, I can be sold. But and I'm going to be interviewing Bruce for Room Shots with Sean, just about his book, his
Oh,
music, his
we should
band, and all
have
kinds of stuff.
Bruce on the show too.
We can have Bruce on the show. I'll talk to him about it
Yeah,
this weekend.
I'd like to have him on the show. I think it'd be fun to have him on the show, talk
Yep.
about this. I mean, he says one comment here that really grabbed my attention. As a guy who has sold cassettes from the stage before digital, it's nice to hear the word community in the independent artist world of music.
And I will tell you, and this isn't just because he put some comments on there. So every time that I've played Fredericton and I played Dolan's Pub there. Anybody in Fredericton knows Dolan's. It's a great spot. Um, Bruce is usually always there with one, two, maybe three of his buddies on the Thursday night, which is sometimes the first set is the lightest set of the weekend. But he's always there. They stay for a set. They're super complimentary, and they go around. They support other artists, and he really gets that aspect of it. And it is important because the last time we were there, Barry Hughes, whose band Sleepy Driver, Barry owns Dolan's. We went and saw his band on the Saturday night before we started playing. Um, the people in Fredericton get it, man. There's a real sense of community there, and I love it. That's why I love going there so much.
Yeah, I mean, there, and again, there's a lot of artists out there who have got really loyal listeners who stream their music on a regular basis. But not only do they stream their music with on a regular basis, they actually start making playlists and submitting those playlists around and sharing them. Those are called community shared playlists. And one of my goals is to get our artists on community shared playlists. But the cool thing about it is that if we develop this the way that we're wanting to go on nittytunes.com, we'll actually be able to um, get people to create their own playlists on our site and be able to share them with other people. We want to make this an opportunity to expand the network of people that would follow artists and listen to their music and stream it and download it off our website. Right now, you can download music straight off our website. It's $1 a track. It's all in US dollars. There's a reason for that. We look at making sure that we can recoup all of our costs. There are costs involved. We have to pay people like Visa and MasterCard and PayPal for managing our payment services. And so they take a slice off the top just for that alone. So, you know, there are people that have to get paid
Absolutely.
in order to be able to pay the artists, unfortunately. And there is no easy way around this when you want to operate as a .com company. So when you look at companies like Spotify, and like I said, we barely just scratched the surface tonight. There are more artists that are hitting milestones across all revenue levels from $1,000 to $1,000,000 on Spotify. So, contrary to popular belief, Spotify is actually paying people. But when you think about it, Spotify has 574 million users, right? But there's only 226 million subscribers. Like they don't have full membership. Not everybody at Spotify is paying full freight for their membership. They're using Spotify for free, for example.
Well,
And
that's the way the world works, unfortunately. Um,
I mean,
you know,
but the here's the upside to Spotify, and I don't want to make it sound like that whole business of uh, play a gig at our establishment for free because it'll be good
exposure.
exposure. But here's the thing about Spotify. Well, they pay a pittance to artists who are smaller in scale and not making the amount of streams. And of course, again, you got to remember that Spotify they have analytics that look at what people applying to premium services, what they're streaming.
Yep.
They can track streams from every account. And one of the things that they're doing now is they're cutting down on more piracy in the market because people were using bot farms. They're using these streaming promotional services to get their music heard, but those are fake streams. They're not even streamed by real people.
No, and I think everybody's probably tried it a time or two. But here's the thing. I guess I had this conversation with somebody the other day. For somebody to actually write a song and record it and share it with anybody beyond their close circle is a huge thing, right?
Mm.
So I understand why somebody sees somebody else getting these huge numbers and they go, "Well, I'm not getting these numbers." But if you just take the most basic form of getting your music out there, that's a huge thing. So, you know, if you just think in terms of actually doing it to the world, because the world can see it when it's on one of these streaming services, you're out there and anything can happen beyond that. I think you just got to not worry about all the other stuff that takes place because things are going to happen or not going to happen based upon the way the world works. But
Well,
just the
here's an
fact, well, I'm just going
yeah.
to
Go
say,
ahead.
just the fact that you get it out there, take that win.
Yeah, I mean, there's an artist that's more recent to the label. His name is George Millette. George writes, I would call it more folk music, but there's a folk rock kind of thing to it. He has a Bruce Cockburn feel to some of his music. Bruce Cockburn, sorry, and he's got that
Cockburn's how
feel.
they say it in Nova Scotia.
Cockburn, uh, and it's got that. It definitely has some of his songs have a John Denver feel to them as well. So people that hearken for that folk rock music, George might be the ticket. But we just celebrated a milestone today. He has 775 monthly listeners now on Spotify.
Beautiful.
When I took over looking after his digital content, he had 0 monthly listeners, right?
Yep.
So in the short time that I've been working with George, the majority of his songs on his release, he has one album that he's released. He has one single that he's released. And I can't go over to Spotify right now because I got too many freaking windows open here, and
Yeah.
I don't want to bog my computer down anymore. But I'm a Ghost in This Town is his album. There's some really great tracks on there. George writes, records, produces all of his music in his home studio. He owns a home up near Lake Ontario, and he just got finished renovating. So if you go to George Millette music on Facebook, you can see the renovations. He tore his whole old studio out of his basement, completely redid the studio. I mean, he's been only at this maybe 2 weeks. It's beautiful.
Hmm.
It's gorgeous. And now he's looking at, he's got a great live room there, and he's also got a really nice isolated booth with a great uh, board. He's using a combination of board and DAW for doing his recordings and an analog board. So some really great stuff going on in that studio. He produces all of his own songs, and look at the following he's already gotten in the short time that he's been with us, from 0 listeners, monthly listeners, to 775. Um, I, another milestone that just happened with the release of this latest single, "It's Too Late" by Helix, 1981, never released on a digital format. It was released on a CD, but never on a digital format, like what we've got it now. And since the release of uh, that single, which came out, will be 2 weeks Friday, I believe, and their monthly listenership has gone from 100 and I'm even going to have to go there because I noticed today it's taken a big jump in the last week. Let me just take a look really quick. I'll give you the stats here. It's quick. So Helix had went before the release had 121,000 monthly listeners. I'm going to round it off. When we released that single about a week and a half ago. And since that week and a half, they've gone from 121 monthly listeners to 155,294 monthly listeners on Spotify alone.
Good jump.
That's a huge jump. But you got to remember, they already had really good following numbers before that.
Yep.
But you also got a band there that's got a 50-year catalog of music. Right?
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of factors involved in how well their music is doing on Spotify. In fact, the campaign goes forward this year to get Helix inducted into Canada's Music Hall of Fame, to get them on Canada's Walk of Fame. Here is a Canadian rock band who toured the bars from coast to coast. They paid their dues. They've been around 50 years. Yes, Brian Vollmer is the only original member left in the band since its inception. But there are other longtime members that have been there for a long time, people that have paid their dues, people like Brent Durner, who wrote a lot of the hit songs that got them signed in the first place, including It's Too Late. So a lot of really great things coming for 2024. And it's really easy for you to join Indie Tunes Records and what we're doing here. And you can simply join us by sending us your information, 3 of your best MP3s, a bio or an EPK to indietunes@gmail.com. And I'll be glad to take a look at that, share that out with Sean and Brent, who's helping us with A&R right now. You know, everything is piecemeal as we grow the label, but we want to keep growing it. We want to find ways to support as many artists as we can and turn this into a download and streaming platform that provides label services.
Absolutely.
And we know there's other people that are going to be joining and helping us on this endeavor. I've already talked to some people. I know for sure Sasha Huber is going to be joining us at some point in time. He's interested in what we're doing. He believes in the cause. He believes in helping us build this musical community. He's got a lot of experience in booking and promotion. So here's a guy who's going to be joining Indie Tunes Records in a meaningful way that he'll be able to help inform people that are interested in doing promotion and bookings. And we're hoping to develop that even further as we move into 2024. Sean, closing remarks from you?
Well, this is more than a 1 hour conversation for sure. It needs to take place again.
This needs to be continued. What do you think?
It does. But I mean, closing remarks, anybody that's been following my socials, I've been talking about 2024 is going to be a good year. There's just some things personally that I've been working on that, I've just been very fortunate to get around the right people and learn the right sort of things. And I can't wait. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 more shows for 2023. And the 2024 is going to be lights out, so I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, we really appreciate people following us here week to week. Some of our shows are in the thousands of views now, which is really great. People get the reruns. They show up on Facebook. They show up. You can go to our YouTube channel anytime you want. Indie Tunes Records on YouTube, and all of our live stream shows are posted up there. completely uncut, completely unedited, just as raw as we do things live here. Um, so I want to thank you, Sean. What a great year. I'm so grateful that you came on board and helped me do this show. You are a huge asset, one that I can probably never consider, you know, there's no amount of money that I could pay for the value that you offer to the show and the value that you're bringing to what we do.
Well, not to get too cornball, but when I see something that I believe in, I don't necessarily need to have money up front because I know that things will come my way. It's a whole pay it forward thing. And somebody said that they hate the term, but I love the term because it basically means you're helping other people succeed. So if that's too corny, then that's too corny.
Well, I want to thank you again for helping me out this year. And we'll be back in 2024 with our first show together on January the 10th. Michael Brandvold, who is a digital marketing specialist, will be joining us. He's got some tremendous reach in the music community. I just saw that one of his clients, Foghat, climbed significantly up the charts with their latest release.
Well, not only that, he was just named on Apple in the top 20 of podcasts in Canada. I think he was number 18.
Yeah,
And just
three sides of the coin.
three sides of the coin. And to put that in perspective, he's been doing that podcast for 12 or 13 years. So anybody that thinks these types of things are overnight successes, stop watching reality TV. That's all I'm going to
Yeah,
tell you.
you want to hear some really great stories about Kiss and the history of Kiss and the inside story of Kiss, the stuff you probably never hear from the band members. Because maybe they've forgotten some of these stories, but Michael lived a lot of these stories because he was the first real digital marketer for the band Kiss.
Yeah, and I mean one of the things, and I knew it, but Michael is so great at policing that site and moderating that site, and for I've never seen a group of fans. Somebody said Star Wars fans are just as bad, so I don't know. I'm not part of that, but I've never seen a bunch of fans that turn on their own so quickly. So just be prepared for that if you go over there. But what a great podcast! They do a great job over there.
I'm sure we're going to be talking a little bit about Spotify when Michael comes on the show on January the 10th, because it's one of those inevitable subjects that's got to be talked about. It's the elephant in the room, and we need to sort it out and figure it out. I mean, there's ways we can use Spotify in the meantime, exploit those analytics, use those analytics to boost our artists, and direct people back to our website where our artists are going to get remunerated the best for their music. I mean,
But
that's what I can say is for them. As always, Sean, thanks for joining me tonight. This has been
Fish.
the Indie Show. I'm Kenny. You're not. Have a great week.